Hello, good morning, everyone. This is a regular Sunday morning 10, 11 o'clock meditation, followed by the series of talk. And so I'm glad you can all join me either on YouTube or Facebook or on Zoom. Um, so we will first start off with a good 30 minutes meditation, during which I will leave you to do your own meditation in silence, and you need to observe your calm abiding meditation technique, primarily to sit still and don't let your mind wander off, but stay very serene. And with your techniques of mindfulness, of keeping the posture straight, watching the breath, whether you're counting them or forward counting or reverse counting, qualified round breathing or simple breathing, or super qualified round breathing. Any technique you know, please do that. But most importantly, one pointed, peaceful, calm, abiding meditation. Um, if you observe the 4S, the stillness of your posture and sincerity of your motivation, wholeheartedly sitting there, and then serenity of your attention for the attention focus, whatever you have chosen to. It shouldn't be analytical, it should be just one pointed, be that your breath or the posture or the counting of the breath. And then you need to do that very simple and not let it become distracted or dull or agitated or getting up and down. Then it's not meditation. So you should just focus on that. Before we do that, we will do this short prayer. This prayer is to reaffirm our common bond and fellowship in the teachings of the fully enlightened Buddha, and also making sure that we do dedicate our meditation with a very prayerful, altruistic motivation for the benefit of all sentient beings with bodhicitta motivation. So your sit is not just for you to feel temporarily comfortable or still and feeling, oh, how was that meditation? I felt this, I felt, but rather do it for the benefit of all. Think of all the people in the world that has gone through so much tough time in recent months and years, and particularly recent days. All those thousands of people buried under earthquake in Turkey and Syria, not to mention various people who are affected by war, and put in a very good thoughts and prayer in your heart, and sit still. If you don't have a discipline of meditation, but today you happen to be joining me on this platform, just say, I'm going to meditate today with the Lama Choedak online. Okay, and then with this, just sit very still and generate good heart and try to bring some positive thoughts, how you can review and renew your life, your thought, your relationships with people, your habits, your discipline. What are the areas that you can truly bring the present, that you can give to yourself by being present in meditation? So with these attitudes, to arouse these attitudes, we will say these prayers. And after that, I will use the gong to time the 30 minutes in 3 lots of 10 minutes, and I'll leave you to it. So we'll screen share the prayer. O yenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Pyöte Laden Bhavachu Adyendala Aishare Buddha Jubye and Abu Dharma Sangha Aitere Pyöte Laden Bhavachu Adyendala Aishare Buddha Jubye and Abu Dharma May all beings have happiness and a cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know our powerful happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know our powerful happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know our powerful happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, and those near and far. So that's the meditation. Thank you, everybody. Now, the talk this morning is using the same theme of addiction to self-addiction. This is a very important Buddhist topic because our caring industry talks about addiction to various things like alcohol and substances, and which not only addiction, even people are not addicted to alcohol, and even just a person who drink and driving, you can see his drinking becomes a cause of is a crime, and which brings a great harm to himself or the society or directly or indirectly related people. So today's topic about addiction to self-addiction, part 2, will look at the addiction to our own feelings. Our addiction to our own feelings, if the feelings are pleasant and wholesome, and they will not be regarded as addiction. But if you are, for instance, if you're practicing loving kindness, and if you have compassion, and if you are really dedicated and committed to practice loving kindness to not only to people of great your respect, people you respect, people you have filial duty to, elderly, sick, people of object of pity, and helpless animals, and unprotected people, people who are abused, and we try to show particular feelings of love and care and concern and compassion. These are not regarded as a kind of addiction to such self-feelings. They will be wholesome. Addiction, by definition, has a afflictive kind of effect to the mind. So I would like you to, if you are listening to me and joining this morning, try to look internally. What are the types of feelings that you have towards someone, towards something, towards your people, or to your culture, or your race, your gender, and your things like that, and your religious beliefs, or your whatever those things are. Some people attached to their religion, to their lineages. You wouldn't believe how some people are so attached to their feelings towards their tradition, and they don't realize it is cause of schism, cause of bias against somebody, bias towards someone. So therefore, the addiction to one's own feelings is something that we need to recognize. Because if we don't recognize, it is chances are that some of the very big problems that we have in our emotional and mental level problems are all to do with addiction to self-addiction to one's own feelings for or against others. So it will be useful, as I try to talk, for you to look at what are the feelings towards whom, or what issues or stories or events of the past that you have still so stuck in that feelings and opinions related to that. As a result of that, you have some ill will towards something or someone, and you have no intention to get over that and try to overcome and get rid of the ill will, because you're so addicted to your feelings of what you think was wrong, or what they did or alleged to have done. Of course, even if you believe that what person did or is negative, but that is actually that what the person did is itself is totally your figment of imagination that you think is they did. You think they wronged you, or you think they wronged your mother, or you think they wronged your friends, or you think that someone wronged the same gender as you, or whatever, and therefore you are busy forming, not busy forming, but still addicted to the feeling of wronged by such and such person. And some of your high blood pressure, some of your on anxiety and depression and grief and a lot of torment that you wouldn't have the ability to let go, it comes from your addiction to the self-addiction of your own feelings and the story that you've been telling yourself. So Buddhism teaches that that sufferings have their origin in the true origin of suffering is in one's own afflictions, and the subtle then affliction is self-grasping, grasping to your feelings. You're still opinionated by your feelings. You have no intention to change your feelings and opinion of something, and yet that is the one that is hurting you since the events. So PTSD order, post-traumatic stress disorder comes from our addiction to our feelings of past events. And we have no intention to change our reading and opinions and feelings about it, yet we suffer from the post-traumatic stress disorder. And the various trauma that you have is because your addiction to your own feelings that you think is accurate. If it's accurate, it should benefit you. It should be useful to you. What's the point of benefit being righteous about something when the thing that does to you is only causes to deepen your craving, deepen your sorrow, and thinking that someone wronged me, and you still have this ill will towards them, and then ill will towards his or her associate because they think he's the one, his brother. Then you just blanket them. You just think everybody is that group is your objects of ill will. There are lots of racial kind of ill will, and that mainly comes from addiction to self-addiction of our own feelings as to what that race did to me or my race. This is some of the biggest cause of conflict in the world, is this inherited hatred. On an individual level, that's exactly. So addiction to the self-addiction of thinking that you're right. You're so addicted thinking your feelings and your opinions is accurate. And so therefore, however many years and centuries or decades ago the event was, alleged that it was, we still making ourselves to be addicted to that point of perception of feelings. And hence we are somewhat still have the same ill will, and therefore our addiction to self-addiction to feeling is making us very addicted to feeling, being angry to somebody. And we think that the being angry to someone for whatever we think they did is maybe it's a heresy. Maybe it's our own projection that we felt was that they did. But what they did is completely different. What they did is themselves under the torment of afflictions, and where they lose their sense of sanity and control, and they are basically hijacked by their own afflictions, like a person who is forced by his drinking to drive very unsafe. Likewise, person who is addicted to his selfishness, and then force him to act or speak in a way that he was not aware of what he was doing, let alone to you and your associates. Now, if you're able to have this ability, then you can see they become so much drowned in the feelings of rage, and they lost the plot, and therefore they perform the wrong deeds under the influence of the affliction and addiction to the self-affliction. So this is why awareness of the addiction to the self-affliction is not only saying it's all your fault, but we then learn to see, that's exactly what the person was. He was afflicted. He was under the influence of self-addiction, which made him to say or do due to karma and other set of negative circumstances. So we actually develop compassion to them. I have been myself in the same shoes as theirs, because when I'm afflicted with my own afflictions, and when I do not know, I say and do the things that I least approve of other people. So the person whose action I was angry since then is actually no more than that. So therefore, it is my moral and intellectual duty, if I want to be intelligent, to change that, rather than being addicted to my own self-affliction. Now, if you're able to do that, that's actually where you are learning to become awakened. You're actually growing up. You're actually growing up. The person you're angry at, and you're feeling of anger towards them, because that can completely mar your ability to see all the good, any other good qualities of the person you do not see because of your prejudicial views. So your feelings of addiction to your own self feelings can completely mar and disable your perception, your imperception. You now only have imperception. You don't have a correct perception of them. Your imperception is caused by your own addiction to self-addiction about somebody that is already inaccurate. It's inappropriate reading of what the object is. It's totally your own rage and affliction to which you are not aware of, you are addicted to. You are becoming so much held at ransom by this affliction. So your grief, your pain, your sadness, your resentment, your guilt, all are due to addiction to self-affliction. Afflicted by anger, afflicted by jealousy, afflicted by resentment. And these are very negative feelings. These are unpleasant feelings. So unpleasant feelings, though there are, people are still addicted to the unpleasant feeling and its opposite, so supposed causes and conditions. So one thinks that one who's addicted to self-affliction doesn't know that one's own share of the problem one does not see, but one projects everything out there independently and truly existing out there. And thus you justify staying angry and nurse the angry feeling. And you couldn't see the person, however the person, next time, 5 days later, 2 days later, you couldn't see any good in the person. You completely have this in the box. You have put them in the box and you have framed them. So your perception of somebody is caused by your addiction to the self-affliction. So you couldn't see the person, any goodness, what he does or what is he doing or he can do, he has done in the past. You could not see anything because you have framed that up. You have framed that up. So we have to, if you are addicted, if you're not addicted to self-addiction, you will know, this is when I was addicted to my self-affliction. Then I was so emotionally drowned in my own poor me mentality, and this is what actually creates such kind of a phenomena in my own life. Then you become cognizant of the object as being figment of your own imagination, and therefore you have choice of not to do that again, so you don't do ill will, so you don't do resentment, so you don't do anger, so you don't do guilt, so you don't do low self-esteem. So these are the ability to see how harmful and destructive it is to be addicted to these kind of feelings, these kind of emotions. Why they're called destructive emotion is the destructive emotions are those feelings that are unwholesome that you are addicted to, and you do not know how to unpack them. You have completely made yourself believe that it is independently caused by somebody else. It is never you, and you're just always a victim of something. this kind of a servitude that you yourself have unconsciously caused is, I call, self-addiction. If you have a son or daughter or loved one who's addicted to alcohol or drug, you will tell them every day, please get off that. Please try to stop this. You will do that. But remember, it's even the addiction to alcohol and drug is a mask. The real addiction is self. Why Buddhist teaching has to be regarded as a higher training is higher training because most people are too low, too small, so low-minded. They don't see the addiction of self as a problem. Only the awakened ones, the enlightened ones, who are realized, they see the real addiction is self and mistaken identity of self and its feelings. And one becomes so addicted as one's feelings are accurate, as one's feelings are caused by him or them. And this kind of addiction and not willing to actually check what are the kind of composites of the feelings. In Buddhism we call feeling is an aggregate. Aggregate means it is it's a composite of many factors. Like table is a composite of 4 legs, a plank, nuts, bolts, and there isn't really a table in any of the parts. When you break down the table, there is no table in the tabletop. There is no table in the table legs, no table in the hinges or nails. Likewise, your feelings is a composite of many, many factors. Feelings comes from contact. Like eyes could, visual or consciousness looks at a form. By looking at the form, then he likes or dislikes, and if he likes a pleasant feeling, and he dislikes unpleasant feeling. But the same object does not produce identical feelings to 2 people looking at the same. So that shows the feelings that you both derive from the object is not object produced. Object is a condition. But what attitude that we 2 people develop will determine the feelings, not the object. So that shows the object is a small component in the feeling, but it is not the entire cause of the feeling. So when you are not addicted to your feelings, as soon as you generate a feeling, you say, oh, my feelings is not entirely object arisen or object induced. That is largely to do with the figment of my own imagination, how skillful I am to choose what kind of positive or negative or neutral thoughts. If I recruit positive thoughts more often, and I'm not so vulnerable to negative thoughts, then even object that is really, really provocative and negative, I can engender positive feelings, thoughts about it, and then the feeling will be totally different. So therefore, there is no inherent, independent, truly existing object that is cause of the feeling. So when we are able to understand that, the purpose of today's talk is so that people learn to realize that I'm addicted to my feelings of sadness, or of not being loved, or not being respected, or of being treated with contempt by him, and he never speaks kindly to me, and one just think that's him, and then we straight away develop a constant feeling of aversion to the person, and then anger towards them, and jealousy towards others, resentment as a result of that, and then grief, as a result of that, weeks, months later. These are, you can see that we are drowned in the kind of feeling that we ourselves has been standing in. You do not get flooded until you stand in the water. You have to be in a low ground. Not because it rained, it is flooded. It's because you are standing in a very low ground place. You have built your house in a very low level, probably because it was cheap, or whatever, and then you think that the rain is the cause of the flood. No. Rain is not a cause of flood. Your house being low and you not having taken account how unsafe it is. So therefore, feeling of being flooded by the water, of course, water only floods when there's a lowland area. The water doesn't flood at highland area. Likewise, if you are very low self-esteem, you're attached to poor me, then whatever somebody does makes you feel sad and hurt and overlooked and unappreciated. And so all of these things are caused by addiction to your own low self-esteem. This is what we're really talking about. It doesn't mean that you have to always have the low self-esteem, because even low self-esteem is not truly existing feeling. So do not mistaken me thinking that you are the problem. No, you are not. You can be the cause of the solution. If you realize that you can raise your self-respect, that I have kindness, I have wisdom, I don't want to think like this, I'm not subordinated by some stories to feel like this anymore. Now I'm learning Dharma, I'm listening to the teachings, and it's showing me, teaching me is showing me how not to think poor me, how to think of others who are less privileged than me, and look at that. Then you straight away you feel being loved, because you've forgotten that you were loved. You still have loved ones, and you will always be loved by someone. If you really look carefully, positively, there's lots of people who will love you, who respect you. If you have your own standing not so low, if you do not have this addiction to the poor me mentality, people will look up to you. Why? Because they are projection of yourself. So therefore, addiction to the self-addiction of one's own feelings is very important. That's why we meditate. When we try to meditate, we try to be present so that we do not let our mind fall so low and then stand in there still and let the mud pool rise up above your knees. You need to get out of that mud pool. Firstly, don't go to places that are so low. Secondly, don't stand there too long. So that's why when we meditate, we try to change our feelings by watching the breath in and breathing out, and do a couple of sort of rounds of inhalation, and then exhalation, let it go, bring some positive thoughts and breathe it in, and that with that confidence you let go. If you did a couple of rounds of mindfulness breathing, it will slowly relax your thoughts and then positivize your feelings, and therefore you are not addicted to the feeling of for me. You are actually doing something. You are exercising your mind, you're exercising your thoughts, and therefore you're changing your feelings. Your feelings aren't something permanent, something truly existing, something independently. They're totally dependent on many, many factors. Its ability to see the multitude of factors that actually comprises the feeling enables you to therefore take those things apart and then see the lack of truly unitarily independently existing feeling. So feelings and causes of feelings are all impermanent. Feelings and conditions of feelings are all dependently produced. And feelings are never inherently existing. If you have this fitness to think like that, no matter what somebody did under the sway of their own affliction, you do not feel harmed by them, but you feel, their unskillful action has enabled me to know how much they are under the spell of their own addiction to self-addiction, to the extent of them losing their own plot and then saying and doing things that they would not do normally. Then you have the capacity to have the feeling of compassion rather than feeling hurt. So someone's action cannot harm you, but can harm you if you're not addicted to the feeling of low self-esteem and the wrong view. You will not be harmed so easily unless you're so vulnerable. Your vulnerability comes from your attachment to me, to my feeling, to what he did to me. And you're believing them literally. You're not allowing the variability of perception and feelings. And this is therefore causing oneself to become addicted to the self-addiction of feeling, I'm not loved, I'm not appreciated, you don't respect me, you don't care for me, you have done nothing to me. People say that. They forget everything that they did. And they say that blatantly, you haven't done anything to me, but yet they're spending their life with somebody. Of course they have. That you are just completely negativizing the person one too many times to the extent of not thinking any good in them, but only negative. Why? You're addicted to your negative feeling, negative thoughts about somebody. When you're addicted to your negative reading of somebody, you don't have any reading on them that is alternative because you're not willing to change. So that's why meditation is try to economize, try to balance your thoughts, try to be present, sit still, and have a discipline to sit still and do the meditation technique, and you slowly will find yourself to resuscitate your goodness and reclaim your perception of somebody who's loving and kind. And the person actually have done heaps, but yet you've been telling them you have done nothing to me. And that is such not only as a result of addiction to the self-addiction, but one is not even aware what one is doing and saying that is actually defeating the very things that you wish to derive from other people. So we need to, if you do not have mindfulness feeling, and if you have the addiction to the feeling of self-addiction, you wouldn't know what you are saying and doing that has consequences. What you are thinking and saying and doing is inconsequential. What other people you thought did has the consequences all around. How come? As if law of karma, cause and effect, is very unbalanced. Everything you think has consequences to your mind stream. So watch out. It's your thought is imprinting on your mind. So if you think of this negative thought of him or her or yourself, it will stay in the feelings. And you wouldn't know how you have been printing those things. You are the one who's pressed the print button. You are the one who highlighted which you want to print, and that's what it comes out of the printer. Why isn't that you are not able to do otherwise? If you know what it shouldn't be printed in your mind, printed means doing, printed means saying, printed means thinking. You're only experiencing what you're thinking, yet you're not aware they are. So a person who is addicted to alcohol or drug, how they ruin their life, they don't know it's their behavior. They think it's something else. They blame somebody else. And then they abuse alcohol and drug. But we are talking about self-addiction. You may not drink at all. You don't have any record of abusing drug. But yet you are constantly addicted to selfishness. So in Buddhism, it is a really awakening. And the Buddha is the awakened one, is one who is awakened, woke up from the sleep of how much sleep that we have been falling under the sway of self-addiction. Now, when we are waking up from that sleep of self-addiction, now we realize how selfish we have been, how selfishness is and was the root cause of suffering, and if we were to put an end to the selfishness, we should starting to act selflessly. What is the benefit and useful and wholesome if I thought this, if I said this, if I did this to him, to her, and to our future? So when you're able to conceive this clarity in your mind, then you know exactly what you should stop what kind of thoughts you should stop, what kind of feelings you should stop, or at least scrutinize, and then you become cognizant of that. And then when you become cognizant of that, that means you're not addicted to the self-addiction. Because you can see poison as poison, because the alcohol bottle says it is not safe to drink. It's written. Now you can read. Likewise, you can see anger, your resentment, your sadness, your hurt, your poor me, your judgment of somebody is the poison. So when you now know how not to, because if you have to make sure that poison is poison, not just physical poisons in bottle. We're talking about poisons in the head. Lots of the people are resorting poison in the head. No wonder they have brain hemorrhage. No matter why they have heart attacks, because that kind of poisonous thoughts that they give rise unconsciously, they keep them unconsciously, they actualize under its sway through their words and deeds. And then they do not know how to watch their mouth, they do not know how to watch their thoughts, and then they say and do things as if what they say and do and write have no consequences. You see, this is because of addiction to the self-addiction, to their own afflictions. That they are right, somebody is wrong, and therefore they can say and do and write whatever they want to write. They think that's so. If that's not product of self-addiction, then what it is? Now they are self-alienated by what they said and what they did and what they wrote. Some of them are even in jails for defaming some people, writing something that is awfully incorrect. It is all their negative imagination. They are so addicted. They only went to college and university. They only learn how to write, and they can only write that is very, very poisonous, destructive materials. Why? They're addicted to their feelings. What did they do? They alienated themselves. So that's why it's very important if people practice Buddhism and its teachings, they need to be a little bit more advanced than ordinary people. If you're already always pointing finger to outside, then it is nothing Buddhism about it. You're still as deluded as you previously were. A person who is a Buddhist practitioner, they should internally recognize the invisible or inaudible addictions, because if you affliction to self is never even mentioned in the helping profession. Yet it is the most underlying causes of all the addiction, all the violence, all the social problems are due to self-addiction. According to Buddhism, we call that self-grasping. It's basically self-addiction. So the teaching on how to meditate on the emptiness of self and lack of inherently existing self, lack of independently existing self, is not about emptying things and nihilistically saying that. It is actually affirming what actually it is, what actually it isn't. And therefore holistically thinking that whoever is behaving under the sway of their karma and afflictions and addiction, we have this great compassion to them, that they do not know they are addicted to their own karma and affliction, and therefore they are performing these negative deeds under the influence of the self-addiction. You will have such advantage of knowing this, and hence you are not so vulnerable to be harmed by others, but you instead have compassion to them. In the meantime, what the other person seems to do, things, does not really harm you, because you're not so vulnerable anymore. You're not addicted to your self-addiction anymore. Because of that, you're not so lying on the low land anymore. You know exactly how to go on some higher ground of a right view and right attitude with bodhicitta motivation, and therefore right action, that how you will not react. Even though you might be provoked by somebody's unskillful deeds, you do not react to it, overreact to it. There's lots of people, they're so angry at somebody who did, but the way they reacted, duplicated and escalated like no kind of disproportionately. Why? Because they were not aware of their own addiction to self-righteousness. They didn't know that. They didn't know that self-righteousness is actually much more cause of misery for you in the future than so-called wrongdoing of somebody. Buddhist person should be more interested in recognizing the addiction to self-righteousness and ill will towards others and so on. When you know that, then what it does, it helps you to pause from reacting and from overreacting at all. Because it is preventing you from reacting, it is now weighing up the pros and cons. And because you can tell the symptoms of self-addiction being identified. If you have identified self-addiction, then you tend to control your feelings. You have self-control. You have the control over your feelings, and therefore you will tight-lipped. You will not be so aggressive physically, and mentally you will not be so righteous. This is exactly what we're talking about here. How to recognize the addiction to self-righteousness. When you're so righteous, then you see the wrongness of other people as an unprecedented thing. And you think that whatever negative things you say, do consequently about that has no consequences. You wouldn't even know there are consequences. There are lots of people who have overreacted and want too much, and then they are now stuck with the consequences of that. And then they sometimes they blame to others, and then subsequently they blame themselves. And then they're now turned against themselves. See, this self-addiction becomes self-harm, cause of self-harm. In the end, self-addiction leads people to think of doing harm to themselves. They have a sabotaging themselves. They think it's all my fault, which is just as bad. It's not. The whole idea of Buddhist teaching to teach about self-addiction is that there is not even you, let alone your feeling, that is truly existing, permanent, independent. What exists in you is a temporary kind of entity that is largely dependent on what you do. So therefore you've got to be gentle and careful with yourself and not be too righteous and judgmental and aggressive towards yourself. Because those aggression and enmity and anger that you have previously directed to external object, now it's going to come in back to you, so if you're not careful. So therefore even self-addiction, even self-addiction is not truly existing. Really important that we call that selflessness as emptiness of selflessness. There's no truly existing self, let alone an addicted one, okay? So be gentle, be kind. Even self-addiction is not truly existing one. And thank goodness, with this in mind, you can then relax and learn to give yourself a break, being so harsh and hurtful and vindictive and righteous about where did I went wrong, and then that you cannot pardon yourself. A person who understands the danger of self-addiction should quickly learn to pardon yourself. You've got to forgive yourself. You've got to tell, sorry, I was mistaken. It was figment of my wrong imagination about you. And then you need to hear that, acknowledge that, and then make peace with your past. That therefore proves that even self-addiction of regarding past do not independently, inherently, permanently exist when you have the creativity to change, know, and bring some true transformation. Because it is not my duty or any Buddhist teacher's duty to make people feel more guilty than they already did, Then we wouldn't be helping you. So therefore, no matter what addictions, self-addictions people have, which everybody has, by the way, so you won't be alone. Even someone in your life is really addicted to them, you have to be kind to them. Because they are so addicted and are not aware of that, you need to show them kindly and compassionately that if you are living very tender and loving and caring towards somebody, then they will slowly will influenced by that. See, even the addiction is dependent on how other people treat them. So we start being kind towards the other, to your loved one, and so on, and then they'll start to find hope in you and the rest of humanity, and then they will not be so self-addicted, because they know the others are there who care for them, who do things for them with lots of kindness and gentleness, and with a transformed way of helping them. When they notice that, then they realize, oh, they are good people, and they will not be so negative about the world and people, because they are seeing different world and different people depending what how people treat to each other. As a result of that, the addiction, the self-addiction, is remediable. Why? Because if people are so individualistic and thinking just about me, the more individualistic people are, the less caring and giving and tolerant people are, that much the self-addiction will continue. So, but if we practice kindness and gentleness and forgiveness and understanding, these are all wholesome feelings, wholesome deeds. Wholesome feelings and deeds purify suffering and their causes. So that's why it's not so much who is right and who's wrong, but whose skillful action can change somebody. And you believe that it will, and thus you delegate yourself to practice selflessly and altruistically. If you're doing altruistically, you're not addicted to yourself, so you wouldn't say words and deeds that are under the sway of the affliction. You will instead practice selflessly, courteously, thoughtfully, mindfully. When you do this, you can see within your own naked eyes, you can see you're changing. See, the self-addiction is not truly existing. That even self-addiction is remediable by your conscious mindfulness. And if you have altruism, if you made a vow to practice altruism, and genuine, sincerely, and totally think of others first, and start doing that, and when you start doing that for the benefit of others, you're not self-addicted, are you? Now you're committed to work solely for the benefit of others at your pleasure. It's not comes at your resentment. There are lots of people who do things for others, but in the meantime they're so resentment they're doing, and then they become so depleted of their energy by doing so many things to please others that deep down one really doesn't want to do at all. So that kind of lack of sincerity actually sabotages the person from being effective and beneficial. So that's why we need to be sincere. We need to be sincere and don't do unless you sincerely want. If you're not wanting to do sincerely want, you just withdraw and then try to talk and try to listen and pay heed to that mind until you make a big change in your own approach, how to go about thereafter. Once you're able to do that, you can see the addiction to self-addiction is now conscious. You're now conscious of the addiction to self-addiction, and then the addiction to self-addiction enables you to become conscious of your own thoughts and words and deeds, so that therefore you are not so easy to make small things make you happy and say, I'm so happy, and small things make you upset. So not like that. You can tolerate difficulty ones, even difficult ones. And you do not show a foul face because things are difficult. You don't become so restless, no, I'm getting out of here, I can't stand this place. You don't act like those people who just one moment this, just yo-yoing like that. That they don't show any sense of stability and stillness. Why? Because they're not able to witness the danger of self-addiction. But the moment you're able to detect the self-addiction, the detecting and awareness of the self-addiction then enables you to pause and then cause the control. If you're not addicted, you can change the mode of your grip onto the thing. You relax, you let go, you have the softness towards it, by yourself. As a result of you are the innovator, how to bring some softness and gentleness and spaciousness. And that is quite amazing, the altruistic and very selfless, because opposite to self-centeredness is selflessness. When you do selflessness, your body and your speech and your words, your energy become very, very blessed and wholesome. As a result of that, you're able to radiate kindness and generosity, endurance, tolerance, without any sign of resentment. And that's so important, to be able to live and give mindfully. You can see self-addiction is a real addiction, you don't have to go to have a bottle to drink. You don't have to have some things, but people are often so addicted, so attached to their views, to their feelings, that they have been harmed, they haven't been loved, and they have no opinion, no willingness to change that view, and they're stuck in that. And this is the cause of depression. The addiction to the self-addiction is the cause of depression and anxiety and fear and restlessness. And there is a cure for that. The cure for that is practicing kindness. His Holiness Dalai Lama says, kindness is my religion. If people practice kindness to others, not out of a kind of obligation, but says that kind of a most wholesome way of living, most meaningful way of living, is having a kind heart, good heart, see others as one of yourself, not as someone against you. And like that, once you start forming this attitude, then your whole feeling towards the world is one of the friendship and goodness and one humanity. And that's so important to do. Otherwise, no matter what material comforts and convenience and wealth and resources we have, but we are internally very poverty-stricken. We are so poor and we're so deprived of intelligent emotions. We are so seized by destructive emotion. Why? Because we are addicted to self-addiction. And who want to do that? Especially if they're educated. They have things to hang on the wall to say they have education. Well, is that really education? It's just to give you some food and shelter. Real education is heart, the growth of your heart and mind, and your kindness to the others. That's a real education. We call higher training of meditation, higher training of self-discipline, higher training of meditation. Buddhistically, we call them Shila, Dhyana, and Prajna. Shila means self-discipline. Self-discipline not to become self-addicted. And meditation so that we do not become self-addicted. Wisdom so that we do not become self-addicted, but we instead be of service and benefit to others. So with this, we will conclude here. Thank you, everyone. This is our Sunday morning meditation and talk, and it's important to think of this and dedicate our small effort for the benefit of the world, and always try to go out and do things for the benefit of others. So with this, we are concluding here. Thank you very much. I'll do a short dedication prayer. May all the people who are facing a lot of tragedy and due to natural disasters and man-made disasters be released from those sufferings, afflictions, addictions, and bad actions, but come to their conscience how to change and better their way of life and treat each other kindly. May everybody be filled with love and compassion and the right view. Om Bade Mere Me Varaga Da Deva Mezage Honeza Mehale Berado Bivrande Ojana Padare Zenade Herenda Ayana Jija Vajava Mereda Havagra Mehobe Begas Delavaza Tuhoda Mayana Jija Kareja Manjusrina Ode Azama Tabadra Delava Follow Ode Zamba Aja Dege Ode Mere Mede Excelem Bodhicitta Teba Vedanaya Danza Veda Bimbo Medengri Frele Vedadi Generation. Thank you, everyone. Take care. See you next time.